Welcome to my sewing room. Oh, we have such an exciting show for you today. A little bit of history. My husband Joe says he thinks I have an unnatural attraction to old clothing. And you know what? I guess it's the truth. So today I have taken my natural or unnatural attraction to old clothing and I've pulled some of the ideas, some of the techniques that I love so much from turn of the century clothes and maybe even a little earlier, maybe a little later, to share with you that we can recreate on today's wonderful modern sewing machines and sergers. This particular blouse is a new blouse, although it really looks like an old blouse. It takes the Normandy lace technique and stitches all kinds of wonderful laces on top of netting. And of course, when you wear a blouse of netting, needless to say, you have to have a pretty camisole. So we have a pretty camisole under this blouse. Look at this heavenly little frothy creation of ecru lace and white batiste. The laces are sewn on up and down, making all kinds of interesting mitered lines at both the bodice and as you travel down the skirt. What a beautiful little dress with fancy sleeves also. These are two. Now let me pull these two out together. This is the little antique dress that has running stitch in a blue with sweet little flowers, traveling on down to the skirt, which is very, very simple and plain. Once again, I think you will see more running stitch with sweet, sweet little embroidered flowers. Okay, now to make this over, to take this idea and to recreate it into a sweet little dress for today, we have done this little white batiste dress. This has the little French knots in a circle and the bullion rosebuds and the buttonholes made to run ribbon through, and then traveling on down the skirt are tiny little French knots on the hem, and then little sweet little embroidered flowers in between the French knots. Another little antique dress, and this one would be about 1920s, is of peach, kind of a gauzy fabric, a batiste, but a little bit gauzier than that, probably a lawn. Anyway, it has embroidery on it, and traveling down the skirt, I find pretty little tucks with all kinds of flowers. Here is our recreation of that little dress, and you see it's just as pretty today as it was when the little turn of the century or really 1920s dress was made. Now the final technique I want to show you is on this little dress. It's called airplane lace. This dress is precious. It has all kinds of traditional techniques. You know that the antique clothes had pintuck after pintuck after pintuck. And look at the airplane lace shape on the skirt. Isn't that pretty? Now you might say, Martha, was that called airplane lace around the turn of the century when this dress was made? Well, probably not, because they didn't have any airplanes around the turn of the century. However, I looked at it and it looked just like an airplane to me, so I've called this beautiful, romantic antique the airplane lace technique. Come on over to the technique boards and I'll begin to unravel a few of these secrets for you. Tucks have long been one of my favorite techniques, as was it the favorite technique probably of most of the turn of the century ladies. There are several ways for getting a tuck line. I guess the oldest and the most traditional one is to simply pull a thread all the way across. You pull the thread and then you get it all the way across, and then you have a perfectly straight line. Then you can fold your tuck in and stitch the tuck along. Here it is in a little bit different way. This time, instead of pulling a thread, I have marked across it with a pen, just measuring up, and I've also marked these little dotted lines right here, show the stitching line. So you pull it up, and that would be the fold line, and then you would stitch on the stitching line. That's another way of getting tucks. Here are 3 tucks already stitched in, really pretty wide tucks, about 1 inch wide. This is an antique embellishment that you saw on the original dresses at the beginning of the show, to put trim at the bottom of each one of these tucks. These 3 trims are done by hand, but you can certainly use today's wonderful sewing machines for trims to use on the machine. Here's another technique which you saw on the little dress at the beginning, embellishing the tuck, and then putting sweet, sweet little hand embroidered flowers, in this case in several different colors. These are tucks made with a double needle and a Pintuck foot. Oh, that is so easy and so wonderful. Another cute heirloom technique is to use French knots for decoration. The hem is put in with French knots. Then a little heart has been drawn, and French knots go all the way around the heart to make a little trim. Now, you know, we talked about that pretty airplane lace, which is so easy, absolutely nothing to it. These are the 4 pieces of lace put on the fabric. Over here, I will show you how they've been zigzagged down. Of course, you could just use wing needle entredot if you have that feature on your machine. After I zigzag the laces down, I turn it over to the back and trim away the fabric from behind the laces. And this is what it looks like after the laces have been zigzagged and the little piece in the middle has been left. Airplane lace. I'd like to invite you now to come over to my sewing machine and let's just play around a little bit with some of these techniques. There is a technique for tucks which really doesn't have anything to do with the sewing machine, but this is a really neat trick in case any of you would like to make some tucks by hand. After you fold in the fold, then put a piece of tape along the fold as a guideline, if you're making hand tucks, as a guideline for your needle, so you'll have a little way of knowing how to keep those tucks straight. That's just a little trick for those of you that would like to make some hand tucks. Let me show you another little sewing machine trick. Suppose you would like to fold the tucks and you want to be able to make 3 different widths of pin tucks, and yet you want to use the edge of the presser foot as your guide. All right, you can put the presser foot over here and leave your needle in center position and you get this width tuck. If you want a more narrow tuck, leave your presser foot guiding on the edge, just move your needle over one position. And if you want a really narrow tuck, simply move your needle over to far right position, still using the presser foot along the very edge as your guide. That is a very easy way to make folded tucks on the sewing machine. Now, I told you about airplane lace a few minutes ago. First of all, you draw off the design of the airplane lace on, let me slip my finger on here, on the piece of batiste. I just put little dotted lines, and then I start working with a reasonably wide piece of lace. All right, I have put these lace pieces down, I've pinned them flat, and I'm going to zigzag going around the design. I'm not going to zigzag over the lace simply because that's just not the way it was done on my antique pieces. All right, I'm going to zig and zag and zig and zag right along here. Then when I come to the corner, my needle is in needle down position. I will lift it up, I will veer around, zigging and zagging, and then you can use your wing needle entredot if you would like to. Once again, when I come to the corner, let's be real, that's the corner right there. I'm going to turn around again and simply zigzag all the way around this lace, turning the corners when I get to the corners. You know, another technique that was used so much in heirloom sewing, which is also one of my very favorites, is making bonnets. Little girls always wore bonnets. This particular bonnet is so adorable. It has wide tucks on the back and has a little casing simply drawn up with a ribbon. And then the front of this little bonnet is a purchased ribbon strip. Has little frou-frous here underneath to attach the tying ribbon and lace edging on the edge. The next little bonnet is really sweet too. It has lace on the little crown, the little brim part here, which really isn't a brim, but it kind of is. And then on the crown of the bonnet, there are lots of different lace shaping, beautiful pieces put in all different directions. Once again, the simple type of bonnet simply has a casing in the back, and I run my ribbon through it, and then that makes the bonnet fit. Little girls and dolls love these bonnets, and the best part is, and don't tell anybody, but they're very easy to make. Here we go. The first little bonnet, like the pink one, starts out with a strip that goes across the head. Then entredot is on one side of that strip, and entredot and lace edging is on the other side. This, of course, will be the side that goes across the little girl's face. Now, to make all of these netting pieces that go onto the bonnet, first of all, just draw the decorative figure on, then shape your laces, and then trim away. Trim away all of the excess netting, and guess what? Just put it right down on that bonnet and zigzag it until your heart's content. Just decorate it and decorate it any way you want it to be decorated. And then it's very easy to put it together. First of all, you've got to run a casing on the side where you'll run your ribbon and have your little bonnet tied in the back. Then 2 rows of gathering are necessary on the other side. Gather the bonnet up, isn't that pretty? And then attach the front headband to the crown of the bonnet with stitch in the ditch, trim and zigzag. Run your casing, your ribbon through your casing in the back, and that bonnet is almost finished. Now the other little bonnet has tucks on it rather than lace shaping. This little bonnet has wonderful tucks on the back. Okay, how do you make the tucks? Once again, we draw a fold line and fold it over, and then straight stitch the tucks in. 1, 2, 3 tucks are on this bonnet. Then the next piece is, this is a piece of purchased ribbon, by the way. The next piece has a piece of edging zigzagged straight onto the purchased ribbon, and this side has entredot trimmed and zigzagged onto the purchased ribbon. After it's all finished, the front piece looks just like this. Then I will attach, oh, by the way, once again, I have to run a casing. I almost forgot to tell you that because the ribbon runs through the casing. Then I will gather the front piece, attach the entredot, and then this is a sweet, sweet way to trim. Let me show you how to do this. This is a little ribbon half fan. So what I do, I stitch a piece of ribbon together, lace together, and I gather it, and I fold it into a little fan, and then I put it right on the edge of the bonnet, and then stitch a little piece of ribbon which will be used later to tie the bonnet. Bonnets are easy and fun to make. I kept them on Joanna. I have them made for my little granddaughters. They love their little bonnets for Sunday school and for Easter. And your little dolls will certainly be appreciative of a gorgeous bonnet also. Next, we have a beautiful home decorating pillow for you. Since we've done so many pillows very delicately for your bedroom or your sun porch, I thought we would do a nice big corduroy one for your den. Well, here we go. This beautiful piece of black corduroy has a little bit of a white stripe. So I chose Battenberg to make a little flower basket, and actually this project could be stitched, but mine is hot glue gunned. And this wonderful fringe that goes around it, this is an easy pillow to make. Let me just share with you how. First of all, here's my corduroy. Now I'm going to take a piece of Battenberg and put it down for the flower pot. Then, in order to get these little motifs, one of the best ways to get them is to get old flowers by the yard and simply cut them apart like that. Here's another one of the flowers by the yard which you can buy and simply trim the little pieces off. And this almost looks like a little shamrock, a little beige shamrock. You see, I'm going to trim it out, and now I have a little flower to use in my flower pot. Okay, after I get all the little flowers, I'm going to arrange them like a flower arrangement, some little daisies. I'm not doing a very good job here because I'm hurrying a little bit too much, but you can just pretend that you are a flower arranger par excellence, and you can put all of the goodies in and arrange them in your flower basket any way you want to, and either stitch them or hot glue gun them down. Then, after you get your pillow ready to finish around the very edge, you know, pillow fringe sometimes comes all stitched down like this. Well, that's very easy to pull it out. You stitch the fringe into the pillow, and after it's stitched into the pillow, you simply go along and pull this stitching out to have some really pretty fringe. Now, after this is stitched into the pillow, in this case, we went ahead and put a little bit of white trim around the edge of the pillow and made that absolutely wonderful pillow, which would be great for your den. It would also be nice for gift giving, I think. Next, I have a really cute craft for you. I've always loved to make beautiful pictures for my home. You just wait until you see what we have for you here. The first picture is a wonderful combination of some antique lace pieces purchased at the antique store, just simply stitched down to a wonderful piece of lavender water-stained taffeta. Do you see how the lace pieces are just arranged, and then there's a little bit of silk ribbon cording almost, a silk ribbon ribboning that's just glued down also. The second picture is also very interesting, and I simply love it. It is a little girl's picture, a black and white picture taken to the local photocopy place and photocopied onto satin. Then there is a little daisy stitch all the way around it, some more of this ribbon cording, you know, that you purchase by the yard. And then from the antique store, this absolutely wonderful piece of pink and white tatting that, although it's beautiful needlework, I just couldn't imagine what to do with it until I decided to put it behind this frame with this wonderful little picture. Now this kind of picture is really very easy to make. All in the world you do is get a cardboard, you see, and the fabric is simply glued on behind, not glued, it's put on with a piece of tape. You certainly could glue it. Fold it back. In this case, I've used one of my antique collection, this little collar with a little bow, glued it down, and once again, some more of the ribbons that you purchase by the yard, this time with several different colors, is used at the top. Then I'll take it to my local framer, have it framed, and either I will put it in my house, or I bet that Joanna will probably want this for her new college apartment. Next, I have an exciting and really very elegant quilt square for you. Airplane lace is really pretty when used on the traditional quilt fabric. Here we have airplane lace made out of the lovely English netting lace, stitched down on one of our squares on the turquoise 100% cotton quilting fabric. Here is how we made this. Here is the actual size airplane lace motif, which I drew onto the quilt fabric. Then I folded the lace on the ends, and now I'm ready to stitch. But I did want to show you one other way. You don't have to fold the lace under, although you can. You can just simply clip the lace to match the pattern underneath, and if your zigzag is tight enough, it will hold it just fine. Okay, after you've got the airplane lace ready to go and clipped or stitched or folded under all the sides, you're now ready to zigzag it down and finish your quilt. Next, I have a really interesting technique in silk ribbon for you. It's called ruching, which is an antique technique. I am very pleased to have as my guest today, Kathy Brower. Kathy is senior editor of So Beautiful magazine. Kathy has a really gorgeous silk ribbon trick to show you today. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Martha. I really do have a beautiful trick to show you today. What I'm going to show you is actually a very, very old technique. It used to be on a lot of the antique garments. It's a type of gathering. It's called ruching, and I'm going to show you how to use it as an edging and as a flower. First, I'd like to show you this gorgeous box we have that's been covered in red, and the designer used wire edge ribbon, and she used the variegated colored wire edge ribbon for her ruching. She ruched it and gathered it, and the little wires make nice little puffs along the edge, and then she just glued it around the edge of her box. Another project that we have is a silk ribbon ruching on a purchased picture frame. Here it's used as an edging, and then here we have ruched flowers. Believe it or not, it creates all kinds of different looking flowers. I'm going to show you how to do this. It's very easy. What you do is, and I'm using the widest 32 millimeter ribbon. And as you can see, I've used purple thread, but you'll want to use a matching thread. You would use, if you were using this beige ribbon, you'd use beige thread. And I've used this ribbon so you can see what we've done. You just stitch at an angle. You can fold. I folded my ribbon so that I'd have a fold line to follow, as a good zigzag. And I used a long beading needle, because you can use any kind of needle, but I can put a lot of stitches on one needle before I put it through. And you just go through here doing like a tack stitch, a running tack stitch all along your little zigzag edges, and you pull that through and you create these stitching. Then you'll pull this thread gently and begin to gather. You see what's happening? It makes a neat little ruffle. The thread, you get this lined up again, will tend to want to pull straight, and the ribbon will start zigzagging on you. So I'm going to pull this up, and then I'm going to show you how you make a flower. Of course, for edging, you would just simply even out your gathers, distribute them evenly, and then lay it on your project. And you can either, if you're stitching it on something, you can stitch right down the middle, or you can glue it or tack it. Another pretty thing to do is to glue beads down the center here where your stitching is. For a flower, you'll want to gather this up a little bit more tightly, pull it around, and you'll want to pull this in a circle. And you'll wrap it around, kind of like you do a wrapped rose. And then you'll distribute your little puffs into a flower. And you have to pull this tighter as you go. When you wrap this around and stitch it, you might say, well, I need to pull that a little bit more tighter to get a little bit more puffs. And then you'll just tack it and play with it with your fingers until you have a flower like we have here. She's pulled hers a little bit tighter to get these pretty petals. So you just have to play with it with your fingers and tack it down when you get it exactly where you like it. And then you can put these pretty little colors in the middle or move them around. You can make irises out of them if you want to, but it makes a great flower and a great edging.
Oh, how pretty. Well, Kathy, following this antique technique of ruching, I would like to say that we have a doll dress which has a ruched trim on it. You are going to love the doll dress today. Looking at the neckline of the doll dress, and by the way, this is a lovely peach Swiss batiste. Do you see the neckline is made of netting, the little high yoke, and it has ribbons stitched down. Now that wonderful technique of ruching is used once again on this little doll dress, all the way around the yoke, all the way across the shoulders and in the back. A sweet little ribbon rosette, or frou-frou as we call them, is right here on the doll's where the bodice joins the skirt. Look at the sleeves on this dress. Absolutely simple to make. Little peach ribbons in 2 different colors stitched down flat all the way around the sleeves. What an antique looking doll dress. Now coming down the skirt, this is a sweet, sweet and very simple hemline. The hem has entredeaux and then the hem is hemmed up to the entredeaux. Now the ruching, as you've just learned from Kathy Brower, can be done by hand. It can be done by hand for a doll also. Here's the way you do it by hand, just like Kathy taught you. But our ruching was done on a sewing machine for the doll dress. You simply stitch up and back, pull the bobbin thread, make it gather, and stitch it on. One more little trick, and then we'll go on into our attic, is to take the netting and simply stitch the ribbon down on the netting, but don't forget, you do have to use water-soluble stabilizer when you stitch on netting. I have a really beautiful turn-of-the-century garment and a wonderful turn-of-the-century technique to share with you on the garment in my attic. Won't you come along? I have the most interesting technique to share with you that was used very typically on turn-of-the-century christening dresses or baby dresses. Do you see this little casing that goes right around the neckline and the little casing that is right here at the waistline? Well, that casing is in there for a reason. Let me turn it around and show you the back. That was used as a drawstring. To pull the neckline up, you can make it smaller if a smaller baby were going to wear it, or larger if a larger baby were going to wear it. And the same thing holds true around the waistline. You could tie the waistline in to fit the baby. Now this little christening dress has some other beautiful features too. We've been talking a lot about tucks. You can see these absolutely beautiful tucks all the way down the front, over on this side panel, on the center panel, and just beautiful Swiss embroideries. And then all the way down to the bottom, the tucks are all the way down with a lovely ruffle, insertion, more ruffles, and more insertion. A truly elegant dress, just as elegant today as it was a long time ago. Thank you for joining me in my sewing room today. I certainly hope to see you next time.